What up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I last put out a video. I want to say thank you to the 260 subscribers that I've gotten over the course of this past year as well. Thank you so much. My name is Jabbar, by the way. I don't say that enough on here because I don't use my real name in my title for my channel. But my name is Jabbar, and thank you for being here. Now that I have a little bit of time, I did want to come and do at least one final review video for the channel for the year, and that is on King Richard, a movie that has been highly anticipated for a while now, produced by the Williams sisters themselves, about their father, and also, of course, starring Will Smith. And when I went and saw it, I actually saw it over the Thanksgiving break with my girlfriend's family. My girlfriend's mother wanted to see it, and she wanted to watch it, and so we all watched it together during Thanksgiving, and I was pleasantly surprised by what they were able to do with the story, and how, what they were able to tell, and the many different facets of which Richard Williams they were able to show. I have been a tennis fan since I was a little kid. I've been a tennis fan via my mom being a tennis fan. My mom played tennis when she was younger, and she kind of also got us, like me and my sisters, into tennis, into loving tennis as well. You know, she would always take us out to, when she was going to UNCG, University of Greensboro, University of North Carolina at Greensboro, they had tennis courts, and she would take us out there in the mornings, and she would teach us how to play. I mean, we would play and we would rally each other a little bit when we were kids. And so then she actually ended up, she saw we were kind of getting a little good, so she tried to scrape up some money, because tennis is very expensive. And I think I wanted to also talk about the fact of what Venus and Serena, of course, what they mean to tennis, but what they mean to Black people who have always loved tennis and always wanted to play and enter tennis, but are unable to, because tennis is it is seen as a very classist sport. You have to have a lot of money in order to enter, in order to get into these programs, in order to get a trainer, in order to actually get into little camps and stuff like that. My mom sent us to a camp when we were younger for a little bit, but of course she didn't have enough money to keep us going. And she sent me to a camp another time when I was a little bit older, when I was a teenager. But then we don't have the money. You don't have the money to keep going and keep going and keep doing it. And so, my mom, seeing Venus and Serena coming from Compton, these Black girls with their father and mother, and they come out of Compton and they're beating these white whooping these white girls, pretty much. Everybody was just so proud. My mom was so proud. Every time Venus and Serena were playing, we had to sit in front of the TV screen and watch and cheer them on, because my mom just loved tennis, and she loved the fact that Black girls were in tennis just doing it, and Black people were in tennis just doing it. And so I've been following the Williams sisters for a long time via my mom, and I also have a love for the sport via my mom as well, and I also really like to play tennis as well. And so this story, of course, is them, it is an ode to their father, essentially. I feel like that's what it is, and it is an ode to their father, who sacrificed a lot and also pushed them to be the greatest tennis players of all time, essentially, because they are. I think it's pretty undeniable to say Venus and Serena are top 5, at least top 10 at least top 10 players of all time, and that's Black or white. That's any race. And that is amazing, coming out of Compton, coming from very humble beginnings with very little money, like a lot of Black American families, and being able to accomplish that is a big goal. So the fact that they did this ode to Richard Williams, it was really nice. And if you know the backstory of Richard Williams a little bit, you understand, I would read up on a lot of the backstory of Richard Williams, and also the Williams sisters, because of course the movie can't encompass everything, and there's a lot of stuff that they went through, specifically the racism, which is not exactly too heavily touched in this movie. It's not the racism that they went through, trying to be pros in tennis. you can't, I mean, it's almost unfathomable, like like the amount of hate they got at the beginning of their career and the amount of disdain, you know, the pretty much the whole organization around. And you know, tennis is like an international organization that, you know, encompasses countries. You know, it's not just the United States, it's everywhere. And so the amount of hate they would get, but especially the amount of hate they would get, especially in America. I know Serena, not too long ago, a couple years ago, you know, I think she, after having a really horrible experience, being booed and mocked and all this stuff when she was younger at this arena, at a U.S. Open. I think it was in California. I think it was in California where she played, and then she just, like, a couple years ago, returned for the first time, and like she got a standing ovation, and the standing ovation was essentially like it was like an apology, like, thank you for coming back, like, we're sorry that we did. We're sorry that we were so horrible to you. And they would talk about it in depthly, like how, you know, essentially they were American playing on behalf of America, and like they would get, Americans didn't want them to represent them. Like, Americans would root for the white girls that were foreign versus rather than them when they were playing, and it was like crazy. You know, they didn't really feel welcomed or celebrated. So it's nice to see not only later in life that they are celebrated, but also that now they are celebrating. But getting into King Richard a little bit, and why I liked and enjoyed this movie a lot, and why it was pleasantly surprising. So, like I said before, I was a little nervous about Will Smith's acting in terms of the trailer via the accent and the affect that he was putting on his voice. Now, Richard Williams does speak. He has like a little bit of a deep, raspy voice with a slight lisp, and Will Smith, Will Smith in the movie, when he's doing Richard, I think he gets everything about Richard right. I think he gets his walk right. I think he gets the hunch right as well. I think even, I don't know if Will Smith started tanning for this or not like that, but he did get, it felt like he got a little bit dark. He was a little bit darker. Maybe they were just shooting in a darker lighting to make him look a little bit darker. But I felt like he even started to like transform into Richard a little bit, just the way he was looking, the way he would look, the way he would hunch, the way he would walk, the way he would stand. I think he got all of that right. It's just the accent and the affect on the voice was a little bit too strong. It came across a little bit stereotypical slave type of accent that people put on. Yes sir, no sir, yes sir boss. You know, it came across a little bit like that. He went a little bit too heavy. You know, if he just pulled it back just slightly, I think he would have got it. But everything else other than the accent was, I think, perfect. No, at first in the beginning of the movie, it did like annoy me slightly, but then I got over it because I was like, oh, he's actually doing a really good job. So of course I loved seeing, you know, this black man, black father, black husband, you know, essentially raise his daughters and instill in them like a real sense of confidence and self-esteem constantly, you know, calling them Venus Williams and Serena Williams, to sort of like show respect. And there is a sense of like humble and humility in doing that, you know, like raising them up on a pedestal and like almost lowering himself to like uplift them in a way that I really thought was very nice and like, I mean, just very kind, very sweet, very heartwarming. The fact that he was willing to even like, you know, that he loved his daughters, like he was willing to kill for his daughters, and not just, you know, Venus and Serena. But there's this one point where they're being harassed by gangs in Compton, on the tennis courts. He's like kind of like beat up tennis courts out in Compton, and one of the gang members is harassing them, and he actually threatens to, you know, essentially pimp out his oldest daughter Tundi, and then you know, we see Richard go around back somewhere, like he goes and like after taking his family out to eat, you know, that's constantly on his mind. He goes and get his gun from, you know, his his night shift at from working security, and he goes and gets his gun, and he tries to go and find the gang member. They're at some type of burger place, and he decides to like park around the corner and he's gonna go and shoot him, but actually what ends up happening is that the gang member gets shot by another rival gang before he can even go and shoot him. And you know, like, he was willing to like pretty much go and kill for his daughters. And we also see that as well with Brandy too. Brandy is very interesting to me. Brandy, and also oh my goodness, Aunjanue Ellis playing Brandy was really, really great for me. So Aunjanue Ellis is she's an exceptional actress. She doesn't have many lines in this movie, but her presence is felt. And it reminds me of actually how Brandy is in real life. If you ever watched, and I've watched tons of Venus and Serena matches. If you ever watch a Venus and Serena match, you know you see Brandy usually in the stands watching them play. She is always there. She is this silent but powerful figure. Always, she usually has like her shades on, so you can't see her eyes, and she's always like, she's just thinking, and she's just she is a force in real life. And I think that Aunjanue Ellis captures that really well. This like silent in the background force, powerful force that is always there, that she doesn't feel the need to speak because she's felt. I think she even says that at one point to Richard as well, like, don't mistake my silence for like being timid or agreeing with you or just going along to get along, you know, with you. I'm not a timid person. I'm not like a scared person. I don't mistake my silence for weakness, essentially, is what she tells him. We also see a very complicated family as well. I like the fact that the movie doesn't shy away from the complicated nature of this family, from the complicated nature of Richard Williams. Richard is a little bit off. Richard is a little bit off. We have to just admit it. He's a little bit off. He's a genius. Most geniuses are a little bit off. At one point, you know, there's a really tense moment at the beginning when like the girls are kind of bragging about how Venus whooped this girl's behind in juniors, and they go out and they're driving, and the girls are bragging, and Richard keeps telling them to stop bragging and stop being so braggadocious, and they keep on going, they're having fun, they're laughing, they ignore him. So then he goes and he says, go and get me something out of the convenience store. So he stops at the convenience store, someone's go get him something, and then he drives off. And Brandy's like, what the hell? Like, Brandy's like, you better go and get my daughters. But, you know, he thinks that he's trying to teach them a lesson about humility and being humble. And Brandy's like, no, that is not the way to go about it. You will not do it this way, leaving my daughters out on the corner in Compton on these streets by themselves to walk home. You won't do it that way. You can do it another way. And that's one of the places where Brandy, like, you know, she speaks and she like makes her voice known and heard. Like, if you didn't feel me, now you're gonna hear me. You know, I think that's Brandy's sort of character. Like, if you don't feel me, now you're going to hear me. But so Richard in that moment takes them back to the house and he has them watch I think he has them watch like the Cinderella story, the Disney story, over and over again, and he wants to know what they got from it, and essentially they keep getting it wrong. And he just tells them, you know, essentially the point is to stay humble, have a sense of humility, never get too big-headed, which is so ironic at the end, because Richard, towards the end, when they start getting really successful, when they get these big deals and big breaks, and they go down to Florida to this training camp with this very famous trainer. I forget his name, my bad. But essentially he starts getting a really big head. He starts getting a really big head. He starts getting a really big ego. And this is another point where Aunjanue Ellis's character, Brandy, has to check him once again. You know, he wants to sort of control too many things. He wants to control Venus's life a little bit too much, not allowing her to grow up. And I really like that complication, you know? Like, I think that there is an underlying like there's just like a universal thing with parents not wanting to let your kids go. Like you're raising them up right and all these other things, but then you have this, when it's time to let them go, you don't want to let them go. You just want to, because you're afraid you're afraid that they won't fly or something like that, you know, whatever the expression is, or they won't succeed, or maybe you didn't do a good enough job. It's more like so like parents doubting themselves, in which Richard also admits later on as well. Like he admits to Venus, like, I don't doubt you, I just doubt myself. And he gives this really very tender and touching story about when he was younger and how, you know, him and his father went into town, and he went to go get, you know, his father sent him to go give this white man some money. And when he touched the white man's hand, you know, apparently they took offense because he was black, and they all started beating on him and pummeling him. A lot of white men just started jumping on him and beating on him and pummeling him. And all he saw was, you know, his father essentially running away, you know, leaving him there to get beat by these white men and not jumping into his rescue. And so he doubted so he was told, Venus, you know, essentially, I doubted a little bit whether or not, when you have to go out there by yourself and you have to face these people by yourself, because you are going to be the first black woman to do this. And when you go out, and that's a lot of weight on your shoulders, you know, I fear, you know, will I be like my father? You know, I fear that moment. Will I be like my father and run away, or will I be, you know, better than my father and stay? But I want to go back to that moment where Richard is getting a big head and has a big ego. Because he starts trying to say, like, you know, why does everybody think they know better than me now? You know, people want to go off and do their own thing, and da-da-da-da-da. Venus wants to do this, but I say she's not ready. And y'all want to do this, but I don't think, you know, I have a plan. We just have to follow it. And he's pretty much bullshitting, right? And Brandy can tell he's bullshitting. She actually has to set him in his place, talking about, like, listen, he has to let Venus be her own woman, one, but also that he has not been the only one. He has not done this by himself. You have not raised these girls by yourself. You also have not taught these girls tennis by yourself. You know, I was there too, but unlike you, I don't need everybody to see me as great. Unlike you, I don't need the accolades and the praise and the applause. He pretty much tells this man off, talking about, if I had stayed here, listen, you think you're so great. If I had stayed here for you, I wouldn't have stayed at all. I was like, damn. He talks about the fact that he has children from another marriage. That is brought up. I like the fact that, you know, she brings all this stuff up, because I think it's her place and her rightful place, not only as his wife, but as a black woman, just to put him in his place and say, like, listen, Negro, yes, you are, first of all, I never, because he admits his insecurities as well. He says, you know, I never wanted people, you know, he was always fighting hard for people not to see him as just some dumb nigga. And Brandy says, first of all, I would never be with you if I ever thought that of you. Yeah, those are your insecurities clouding your mind, and now you're trying to build up this persona and ego to sort of, you know, kind of hide it. You know, hide your insecurities. And she pretty much just tells him off, tells him about, like, listen, you have these kids that you don't even take care of from another marriage. You're not a saint. You're not a perfect man. You're not a perfect husband. You're far from it. And you really need to come down and lower yourself and be humble, just like you told the girls to be humble and have humility. It's time for you to humble yourself now. And we see Richard have to go through that humbling humility process once again. The conflict comes in when he gets all this success for them and for the family. And then he starts to get a big hit. And then Brandy has to be the one to, like, check that ass. And I really love the complication of that, of Richard not as a perfect man. There is no such thing. We are all human beings. We all have you know, our own demons and we fuck up and all this other stuff. And I really like the fact that they don't shy away from that, because sometimes in biopics, let's just be honest, people can gloss over the rougher edges of a person because they simply want to exalt that person. And I like the fact that even it still stays respectful, right? We're highlighting the criticisms about Richard, but we're also like, let's not forget that what this man accomplished and what he did. I also like the fact that Brandy also, like, you know, that we do learn that Brandy Williams, like, she did have a hand in like teaching them tennis as well, and that, you know, she does deserve more credit. You know, let's just be honest. I think, you know, Brandy leaves that moment where she's checking Richard and she's like, you know, I don't need the accolades, but you do. And I think that is silently said, but it probably should have been said a little bit louder. Some of the things I want to highlight about this movie is the gang culture and the gang violence that is depicted in the movie, because I didn't think it was I actually thought that they actually subverted a lot. So at first they start out with these sort of stereotypical gang sort of thing, like the intimidation of this gang member trying to push up on Richard. Oh, he think he better than us. And you can see a little bit jealousy. It's a theme that goes on in this movie, people being envious or jealous, and people thinking like, oh, you trying to be better than us. You know, that happens, especially with this one gang member who confronts them at the beginning, that also talks about pimping out his daughter. You know, essentially, he's going to one day pimp out Tundi. And, you know, after we see him get shot, you know, there's another gang member that moves in his spot. And this gang member actually, you know, appreciates what Richard is doing and trying to do. And he's like, listen, we're going to be your protection around here. You ain't got to worry about nothing. You and your girls, this is your spot. Nobody's going to bother you as long as I'm here. And I really liked that complication as well. There's a lot of complicated aspects of this movie that the film is not straying from. Like, things are complicated. Everything is not good and evil, but there is, like, it's complicated. And gangs are also complicated, and especially gangs in LA. If you know the history of gangs in LA, like Crips and Bloods being, you know, sort of deriving from the Black Panther Party, essentially. You know, essentially they were supposed to be like neighborhood watches where they would protect the community, and then they sort of devolved into, you know, these sort of violent factions that still somewhat do have that same, they do have some of those still same values of protecting the community and providing for the community. I think there's one aspect of gang culture that people don't talk about that I find very interesting. We also see that in Akilah and the Bee, if you remember it. Like, remember Akilah is trying to win her spelling bee, and like the gangs, you know, sort of like, I think her brother is trying to get in this gang with this dude, and the dude is like, nah, help your sister, she needs to win the spelling bee for the community, you know. And even like the gang members start to help her and stuff like that, you know, study for her spelling bee. You know, she has a whole community behind her, essentially, you know. And I think that's one aspect of gang culture that people don't really talk about, the fact that gangs, they do have these values, not all of them, but a lot of them do have these values of, like, they are a institution within, you know, impoverished Black communities, in which people can lean on in a very strange way. I know they've been depicted as like this very evil thing across the board, but when you actually, like, I've seen a couple documentaries talking about, you know, like the drug dealers in mine hood, you know, the reason why we wanted to be like them is because they would come out, they would give us money, they would like buy us ice cream, they would make sure we were fed, we ate, you know, like I like the fact that there is a depiction of gang culture in that complicated manner, where not every, yes, there are bad aspects to gang, of course, we know this, right? There are violent aspects to gangs, but there are also very, like, community organizing aspects to gangs that people don't really touch on, and I like the fact that is touched on a little bit in here. You know, there's one point where Richard brings in the white coach the Punisher, and also Shane from The Walking Dead, but I don't know his real name. I'm sorry. He brings him in to sort of play with the girls, essentially, like to see what they're all about on the tennis court in Compton. And the gang walks up. Who is this white man? And Rich is like, no, he's with me. He's just white. He's just white. He's like, okay, I'm just making sure. And, and it's a really funny moment. Racism is touched on a little bit throughout the movie as well. It is not explicitly said. You know, it's more like subtle looks and actions. Like there's one point where Venus is in the juniors, right? And she's playing this one girl and she's whooping her. And, you know, this white man, he essentially has paid all this money to, like, he's been, you know, of course, sending his daughter to these training camps and stuff like that, trying to get her with the best coaches and stuff like that. And this black girl from Compton, who they don't even know, shows up and just starts whooping on her. And so, you know, at one point, Venus hits the ball and she gets the point, and the girl doesn't call it. She's going to let it go. And then the father says to her, say it was out. Say it was out, because there is no real referee or real like umpire, what they call them. Umpire is the referee within tennis. There is no umpire to like call the shots. You know, it's sort of dependent on the players, like an honor code, like just be honorable and just say like, hey, they got that point. Hey, they got that point. And the girl listens to her father, who yells out, just say it was out. And the girl says out. You know, she looks at her dad and she's like, oh, out. And they have to replay the point, and Venus still ends up winning anyway. And yeah, it's just a lot of little stuff like that happens, like little, like the movie kind of shows a lot of little microaggressions throughout, like that white people are giving them, like looks and stares and certain commentary that they're giving them and stuff like that. You know, I think one dad makes some comment about at first, when Venus first shows up, about like, you know, oh, this should be easy or something like that, like she should be an easy win, or this should be an easy win or something like that, and then it turns out not. Right. There is a point, and then yeah, so there's just a lot of stuff. There's also a comment that the movie focuses on, that Richard makes about tennis player parents, that I think is funny. Like, he thinks that they all should be shot. And what is not highlighted in the movie outright is the fact that, like, those white tennis parents were very racist towards them all the time. And so it's not like unreasonable to think that, like, yeah, I think that these parents are horrible, and they're horrible people, and they treat my daughter horribly, they treat me horribly, they even kind of some treat their own kids horribly. We see that a little bit, like even that commentary is made within the movie about how the white parents are kind of very hard. They're not very kind or gentle or caring with their kids. They are very hard on their children, and not in like they don't do like the affirmations that of course Richard does for his kids, right? Like they like if they lose, it's something like, you're wasting my money, you're wasting my money, you know, you're wasting my time. And so we see that a lot too. We also see at one point like the commentary on white parenting, and also being coached by white people, with the white tennis player, I forget her name, that Venus looks up to, and she's like very young and very successful, and she ends up like, you know, I guess she ends up getting caught for like smoking weed or something like that, or doing drugs and stuff like that. She ends up getting arrested as well. And, you know, like essentially Richard makes the comment like, I'm not going to have my daughter strung out somewhere, arrested, because she's so stressed out, you know, from your coaching, from y'all's coaching. You know, he has like, and he also sneaks behind the one coach's back, and he's like, yeah, I'm having Venus being coached by multiple different people with multiple different games, because I want her to be well-rounded. I don't want her to just be a one-trick pony learning this one thing from you. I want her to get a well-rounded, not only education, Which is another aspect of the movie that I really like, that is very subtly talked about. The fact that he was very big on them having an education so they wouldn't get screwed over in business, and also just later on in life they wanted to go out and do further ventures. And I also think not enough is talked about in terms of Venus and Serena being very good business women. They are very, if you look into their businesses, if you look into their business dealings, these women are very smart. They are paid, and they have multiple they have multiple forms of income coming in from multiple different areas, because they are very smart business women. You know, Richard, like, he wants his girls to learn many different languages, which is also really smart, because he understands that they are going to have to go around the world and travel in the pros, because that's what you do. You know, it's not just here in America. You have to go and travel to, like, of course, you know, Wimbledon, and there's the Italian Open, or no, the Australian Open, and all these other things, right? The French Open. They're gonna have to learn. And if you watch Venus and Serena, I think you'll sometimes see Serena speak French because she's very fluent in it. And so he wants to, like, he instilled that in them. Learn different languages so you can speak to different people when you go to different countries. Also, I don't want you just to be focusing on tennis. I want you to focus on also school and getting your business right, and being smart, because what you see so many times is players going broke. He understood that back in the 90s. Already seeing it, already noticing the issues with players and what they go through in terms of contracts and stuff like that. He wasn't just going to take the first deal that people gave him. He was very good at negotiation. We see that in the movie as well. I was talking about the racism, right? Then I got off on a tangent. But yeah, the racism is very subtle, and I actually like that. I do like that. I feel like if you want to learn more about the racism and the more overt racist things that were done to them, you should go and read up on those things. But yeah, I did like the fact that it was subtly put through, you know, because sometimes in these movies, and like black movies specifically, race can almost come across as like after school, especially, which I don't like. Like, I don't really like the after school special race takes that movies try to do, where they like try to teach you a lesson. They try to teach the audience a lesson about race. And I like the fact that is kind of removed so that we can just enjoy the movie. Like, yes, it's subtly talked about, but it's not overtly talked about. If you want to go get the overt story, like the overtly racist things that were done to them, you can go do that research outside of this movie. But it's going to be in here, but not like after school, this was racist, and why this was racist, and da 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 da. You know, I don't really find that enjoyable in movies. I also really liked at the end of the film, right? So we get to the end of the film, Venus is going to play her solo match, her first professional match as a tennis player. And there's a lot hinging on this. This businessman comes in, essentially trying to offer her a deal. I forget how much it was. I think it was for like $3 million or something like that. We're gonna offer it just based off your name right now for $3 million. $3 million before you step onto that court, and you have to sign it right now. And Venus is like, and then the white man still looks at they're looking at Richard, and Richard's like, well, this is Venus's decision. So whatever Venus wants to do, I'll back it. And Venus is like, And Brandy's like, I can only accept the deal right now before I step onto the court. It won't be available afterwards. And Venus is like, nah, I'm gonna play. I'm gonna play first, and then if offers are still on the table, they're still on the table. But if not, they're not. And she's like, I'm gonna hedge all my bets on how I play in this first professional match. And she ends up winning the first couple matches. She gets to the end. She's facing, I forget her name. It doesn't matter. But I really love the scene. Because it's the last match, right? And it's for like I think it's for the finals, right? I think it's for the finals. If I'm not like who's gonna take home the trophy, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's the like semifinals. Maybe it's before that. You know, people are like they're sending offers because they didn't expect Venus to like make it this far in the tournament. They didn't expect her to even win the first game. Venus is like, nah. I'm still gonna play. Because I think I can win this whole thing, right? And we get to the last match, and I really love the cinematography and just the visuals in this last match, right? One things I really loved is when Venus comes out. This is the first time we see her in the semifinal match. This is going to be the last match of the movie that we're going to see. And she comes out, Brandy's doing her hair, and she does her hair, and she puts the infamous beads, the infamous beads in her hair in the braids, right? Which sort of became their signature at first when they first were doing tennis. And I love the way that these white beads, when Venus comes out, these white beads, they're just laying over top of her head. And to me, it was very regal and very royal. The way that these white beads were sort of laying, it felt like a crown headdress, like a headdress that a queen would wear, like kind of like an African queen would wear or something like that. A headdress that like sort of, dangles down with like these crystals or diamonds or something like that. And she instead has these like beads, these white beads flowing down her hair, flowing down her face, on the side of her face. And it's just very regal and very royal to me. When people first saw them with the beads, they didn't see them as elegant, right? When they first saw Venus and Serena with these little black girls from Compton with beads in their hair, they saw it as like let's be honest, they saw it as some hood shit. Like they saw it as some like, oh, this is some little hood, low class, right? Hood, low class, ghetto stuff, like ghetto headdress, black wear, right? And I love the way that the movie presents the beads as regal and royal, and there is a certain level of authority and confidence that comes with wearing them. I said before, like an ode to like an African ancestral headdress, like crown headdress, that isn't like your typical crown that sits up on top of your head, but just like drapes over the side of your face. But I like the fact that they highlight the fact that it is regal, it is royal, it is dignified, it is, something to be exalted and in awe of when she walks out. In this match, of course, the lady cheats. The lady cheats Venus. She takes, so in tennis, you're not supposed to take any breaks. This is one thing that also I remember a couple years ago, Djokovic, if you know who that is. Djokovic, because that's what he is. He is a bitch. And Djokovic, he's also a very sore loser and just a very whiny baby. He's just very annoying. He's talented, but he's just very annoying when he like doesn't get his way. And he sort of whines and complains too much. And like, I remember Djokovic, it was like, I think it was against Nadal. It was against Nadal, and because my mom's a big Nadal fan too. So if Nadal or Roger Federer, my mom was a big Nadal and Roger Federer fan, and so if Nadal or Roger Federer were playing on the men's side, we had to watch that as well. It was a couple years ago, we were watching Nadal, I think, and Djokovic play, and Djokovic, he's getting his ass whooped, and he takes a break in the middle of the thing. He's like, oh, well, I have a cramp in my leg. And like, he takes this long ass break, gets him something to eat, to drink. He's stretching. He's doing all this stuff. And like, this is a no-no in tennis. Like, it's seen as very disrespectful. You're really not supposed to stop the game unless it's for a serious injury. And if it's a serious injury, you just need to forfeit, honestly. You're not supposed to keep going. Like, you're not supposed to stop playing. It's seen as rude, it's seen as disrespectful. And there is like even the guy says like it's an old dirty trick to like stop the game, like when you're getting whooped, to like get your opponent off their feet and to stop, because your adrenaline's pumping and Venus is pumping. Her adrenaline was pumping a lot during the match, and she's whooping this girl and she's beating her, and her legs are like fresh and full, like they're just full of energy and excitement, and the girl wants to throw her off her game, just like Djokovic kind of wanted to throw Nadal off his game. And because that's what people felt like. People were very upset. The commentators, you heard them talk about it, like why is he doing this? This is very disrespectful. This is very rude. It's seen as a no-no in tennis. You're just supposed to keep playing and keep going until the game is over, unless you just need to forfeit. Honestly, if you can't keep going, it's almost like if you can't keep up, Hey, and so the girl goes, she's like, I'll take a bathroom break. And she takes like a 20-30 minute bathroom break. Venus doesn't understand what she's doing because she's new and she's fresh and she doesn't understand like the dirty tricks of tennis. This is also speaking to one of the racist aspects of tennis as well. Like, because we're clearly that there's clearly some undertones of this girl doesn't want to get beat by Venus, not because she's young and she's new, but also because she's black. Let's just keep it real. She doesn't want to get beat by this black girl, and Venus does. She ends up sitting down, right? She ends up sitting down, and so of course when she sit down, the adrenaline stops. You know, when your body calms down and everything, the adrenaline stops pumping, and of course Venus, when she gets back up, when the girl comes back out. The girl's probably been in the bathroom, you know, pumping herself up, keeping herself ready and stuff like that. Not really probably even using the bathroom, let's just be honest. And, you know, she comes back out and she starts the game. And, of course, Venus ends up losing because the energy, the excitement, the adrenaline, the rush that she was in is all sort of depleted and also sort of calmed down because her body has settled down as well. When Venus starts to lose and when it's clear that Venus is not going to win, you know, Richard is standing inside the building watching on the computer or watching on the monitors, right? He doesn't really go out with Brandy and the rest of the girls and watch ever in any of Venus's games out in the big stadium, right? She starts to lose and, you know, he's pacing back and forth. He's looking nervous. Again, this sort of the moment back, coming back to like that moment of his father. Is he going to be his father or is he going to be better than his father? And of course we see him choose to be better than, and he goes out and he, you know, goes out while his daughter is clearly going to lose, and he goes out and watches and finishes the rest of the game, watching her lose. So let's just let her know that he was there, that he didn't run away. Also, when they go into the locker room afterwards and he's like, hey, well, no. We're not gonna do this whole woe is me shit. Like, look what you just accomplished. Like, look what you just did. Like, even though you, like, yes, oh, you lost. You're going to lose some. But, like, look at what you just did. You just went toe-to-toe with one of the best. You had her shook at the beginning of the game to the point where she had to cheat. And, you know, he's trying to, again, instill this, like, confidence and self-esteem in her. And she gets up, and he's like, you know, he still is trying to stay in this humble and humility and point of humility. And he asks to carry her bag. And she's like, no, I'll carry my own bag. And I think that is also, again, the lesson coming back around, right? This idea of always in the moment, like almost like carrying the bag is a sense of like humbleness and humility. But that'll be it for this review. Please let me know what you guys thought down below about the movie, or about your feelings about the Williams sisters, about tennis, about anything that I mentioned in this movie, about what you thought, what you interpreted. And I will see you all next time for the next video. Happy holidays. As you can see, my trees in the background. I think I mentioned that before. My trees in the background. But if you don't see another video from me again by the end of the year, I hope you all have a happy holiday season, whatever you are celebrating, wherever you are. But yeah, that'll be it for this video, and I'll see y'all next time for the next one.